Father Richard, welcome back to the show.
It's good to see you again, Rudy.
It's great to have you. How long has it been since you've been on? Like a couple years almost, right?
Oh, I think it's been longer.
Really?
Yeah, maybe 3.
Has it? Wow. How time flies.
It does.
Now, how long have you been the Vocation Director now here in the Archdiocese?
I will complete 6 years in June.
Ooh, 6 years.
Yeah.
So does that mean that your time is almost up?
It could. Normal terms are 6 years.
Oh.
So I haven't gotten any indication from the Cardinal that I'm moving. I'll stick with that I don't have any indication that I'm moving. So it could be year to year from now on or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Has anyone asked you like who you might think might be your successor?
I've had some discussions with some people, speculations, but really, that's up to the Cardinal, the Vicar for Clergy. I wonder if he was interested in having me move to another position, if he would ask me for input. But even then, it's like I'd probably give him like a list of names. There's not like one person or anything like that stands out, and circumstances always change. So,
in the pool of guys, where do you usually pull the vocation director? Is it usually a parochial vicar, or I would guess it would rarely be a newly ordained priest, huh?
Well, I think you're on the right track. So there's not a lot of guys they can pull from.
Okay.
It can't be somebody in their first year. I wouldn't do this to a priest unless they were like at least 2 years. You would hope for 3.
Okay.
And then I don't think it could be a pastor because they've already got a lot of responsibilities, and they usually have a pretty set term, like 6 years themselves. So you can't just take somebody from a parish. I think at the end of the day, the Cardinal, because he's the Archbishop, he could do a lot of things. So I don't want to box him in this zone. But typically, I think you're looking at like somebody who's 2 years out to somebody who's like 5 years out and not a pastor.
Okay, so somebody who's on probably their first or second assignment, closing out their first assignment or closing out their second assignment.
That's right.
Okay, so is there any chance that like somebody say like Father David Michael might?
Yeah, I mean, he's in that pool, right? So I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much.
Father Christopher, maybe.
Father Christopher's in that pool. Father Joseph White's in the pool. I was about to say
Father Joseph White, yeah.
Father Houston's in the pool. There's a lot of people in this pool. Actually, it's a good thing. The last few years, we've had a good number of men ordained. And so the pool's maybe got like 8 or 9 people in it.
Okay. And nobody has come up and said, hey, I would like to do this.
No. And I guess the longer this is not really the job you asked for. I think it's the job you're told for. But as I keep going, and I mean, just year to year, like that pool will change, right? Because some new guys will come in, like the guys to be ordained this year. They'll enter that pool soon enough too, because it'll be only 1 or 2 years before they're already a seasoned priest.
It's been 6 years. Do you miss parish life?
I do. Sometimes I catch myself fantasizing about like, what would I do if I had a parish? There are some things I think I miss about the stability of parish life. I commute a lot. I probably drive more than any other priest in the Archdiocese.
I can imagine that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Cardinal and the Cardinal Secretary drive a lot. I know that. But I still think I have to drive to like other seminaries. I go to Texas A&M a lot, UT, like Galveston, Huntsville, just all over.
Do you go up to Dallas a lot too?
I go there at least twice a year, and sometimes more. And I do drive there, although somebody's told me about a bus that maybe I should take. But just to say that I, because of traffic as well, spend about 3 hours a day in a car.
Wow.
And some of that's just to get from where I live at the seminary to where I work at the downtown chancery. And I wish that I didn't have to do that. I also wish that I meet a lot of different people, but I don't meet them for very long. And a lot of times, it's kind of like see them a couple times and I never really see them again. At a parish, I remember Father Borski, where I was in Kingwood at St. Martha's, there were people he had baptized who he was helping to get married. He'd been there so long
Yeah.
that he just knew people for a good chunk of their life. And that's really, if you want to be a spiritual father as a diocesan priest, which we all want to do, it's really just one of the joys. And so there's something of that I miss.
So if if they do give you another assignment, I'm sure that they're probably not going to throw you into a pastor position yet, huh?
I don't
they
know.
could, maybe.
Yeah.
Even though you might be a little rusty in some of those aspects.
I don't know if they think like that, or they think like, I need a person to take this parish, and so you're like available. So,
you're the only one available.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's make it happen, right? That does make sense.
The ideal is gone out the window right now, and we're just trying to make do with what we got. So
I mean, lots and lots of people moving in here, the Houston area.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like just the Fulshire area.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, that parish is going to be like 7,000 families by the time they get a church.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people are waiting for the big church at St. Faustina, and I think when we do get the big church, more people are going to come too. It's going to be crazy.
That's got to be Father Dad's fear. Is it going to be big enough by the time he finishes building it?
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like, okay, we got to work on the second floor now.
The balcony.
The balcony, exactly, right?
That'd be great.
So what is the biggest thing that you said you look forward to?
Well, I mentioned stability. And I don't know. I think I have a love for evangelization, and I've always cared a lot about it. My role right now, it involves some of that. But I really am working with the cream of the crop, like the guys and the women who come to our office. They're really advanced in their faith. Like these are people who Christ has already worked a lot in their life. They may not think that, but from my vantage point, I've taught like confirmation classes where there are kids who just don't want to be there. Like these teenagers, these young adults, they're really excellent. They're the fruit of a lot of people's labor of love. And so I don't get to evangelize in quite the same way. Like I'm not in the trenches on the front lines, working like, I just think of like the people at U of H. Some of those students, like they've got that statue, they've got, a lot of different denominations and other religions at their campus. Like they're on the front lines of evangelization. There are plenty of people around there who have no idea who Jesus is and who don't like Jesus if they do, So like some of me misses that, like equipping those troops, being with them.
Being in the trenches.
Yeah. And instead I'm sort of working with those people who are already evangelized in many ways. And it's a good work. I love doing what I do because they're still growing in their faith, even though they have grown so much, there's still more. But some of me misses those kind of like frontline conversations about like, who is Jesus and things like that.
What do you not miss about parish life?
Well, so I remember, even though I say things like you get to know people, I just remember like big parishes. I do not miss the number of calls and emails and just the quantity of people who I would try to take care of. Like it was just so much.
Oh, you're getting pulled in all directions.
Yes. I feel like I'm pulled in a lot of directions, but at the end of the day, I work probably with a group of 600 people. I'd say Martha's, I was probably working with a group of like 4,000.
Wow.
And that's not a joke. I mean, like some of them I saw more on a daily basis, but I probably saw in a weekly basis about a couple thousand people. And now on a weekly basis, I see about 200. So that kind of cut down the amount of, just demands on my attention and stuff like that.
So when you do move to your next position, if it's, within the next year, 2 years, or who knows, what's the thing you're going to miss the most about being the vocation director?
The people. But the nice thing is I'll see them again. A lot of the people I've walked with for so long, they're seminarians. And so they'll be brother priests hopefully one day, and I'll continue to see them there. Just like Father Dad sees me, even though I was like one of his first classes coming into seminary. I'm now his brother priest, and well, we don't really talk a lot. I mean, who sees Father Dad a lot, right? Like he's so busy. But when I do see him, it's kind of nice. Like, hey, I remember you, and when I first called you, thinking about being a priest.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool. What's the thing that you will miss the least about your current? Is it the driving?
Yeah. Let's just go with the driving. That's probably the thing I could ditch easily tomorrow.
One of the big things that happened recently was the release of Father Ryan Stawaisz's film. That was, I mean, I didn't expect it to be this huge.
Yeah.
Sold out after sold out screening.
Yeah.
Did you expect it to be this big?
No, I don't think any of us did. Not just, well, I thought a lot of people would want to see it in Houston. I did. But the way that it's been received outside this, quite frankly, even the state, but at least the city, the Archdiocese, is surprising. And the number of people, the directors, and if you get to talk to them, they'll tell you this too. They loved their reception in San Antonio.
Really?
And that boggles me because no one in San Antonio knew who Father Ryan was. And so to see people who never knew him receive so much, like come away in tears, wanting to be, a better priest or a better married woman or a better student or kid at school. It blows my mind, the impact of this film in and around our area. And then who knows, maybe they'll be able to take it on a national level. I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's already played in Pennsylvania.
Wow, that's fantastic. So whose idea was it at first?
Was it
yours? You just don't want to take credit?
I think it was the Holy Spirit. I remember somewhere maybe during the pandemic, I was saying Mass. It was by myself, and I just really had this thought come to me at Mass. And I'm a big person to tell people, like, hey, when you're in moments of consolation, pay attention to your desires. They are likely inspired by God, and you should really do it. And I really just had this desire to have Father Ryan make a film. I had talked to him before because we all know Father David Michael Moses has made films about what does a priest do in a day.
Yes.
They're funny films. I mean, he says it himself. Like, it's supposed to be kind of playful and silly.
Yeah.
No one works out like that. I don't even think he does. Like mapping baptisms or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was like pulling weights as if he was baptizing. Yeah,
that's right. But I wanted maybe a little bit more like a cut and dry version of like, what does a priest do in a kind of more like serious head-on way.
Okay.
And I really wanted Father Ryan to do that video. But he had cancer at the time, and we weren't sure. We had gotten him to do another video that shows up. There are clips of it in the film. And I don't think he liked the way, Father Ryan really, when he did something, he wanted to do it well, right? Like that comes across in the film too.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think he liked how, honestly, he probably had what they call chemo brain. Like he couldn't think that straight. You can kind of see that he's really stretching his thoughts and trying to put things together. There's some beautiful things he said in those little videos that we got, but also the way it was edited, it was very choppy. They had one camera directly, and so in order to make it cut down the 2 minutes, a lot of him was cut out, and you just see his face like shift all over the place from the edits.
Unnatural edits.
Yeah, it didn't look very good. So the video didn't come out that well, and he didn't think he probably did a good job, although I thought it was good. So all those reasons, when I asked him, he said no. And anyway, I had this prayerful inspiration, and I thought, let me ask him again. And so I did, and he said, I'll think about it. And he thought about it a long time because he didn't get back to me. And then the cancer came back. In a way, I mean, it was already there, but he went to the hospital. And he really,
it took a turn for the worse.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. And so he wasn't able to, and that was it. He passed away. So I think it was kind of a dream, a desire. And it really, I thought, like, God, you told me to do this. And I'm sorry that I drug my feet. And, obviously we missed our window.
Yeah.
But it kind of came back up to my mind that, hey, we have some footage. We have sponsors through the Scanlon Foundation that they want to do something like a video, or they like investing in media projects. And I just thought, like, what if I found somebody who was willing to go through the videos that I had? I was only thinking about the footage I had. And I had talked to people in Chicago, and there's some great companies out there, but they were very expensive. And I even talked to the Stawaisz about that. Like, could we raise more money? Like Scanlon gave me an amount that I feel comfortable spending, but they're asking for like, a video like an 8-minute documentary like that could cost like 20 grand. And that was like out of our budget by a lot. And so I remember talking to Jesse and Samela and maybe Melissa, her sister, just kind of after Mass, because I'd see them a lot at the cathedral or UST. And they were like, we want to do this for you, but we're so busy with Medjugorje. And I just thought they were being nice, But eventually they actually finished with their video and they were like, no, we really want to do this. And I said, okay, well, here's all the tapes I have, like all the hard drives and things like that. And then they went to talk to the Stawaisz, and we were talking about how to find people who knew him. And boy, did they find people who knew him. And the testimonies that they got, they talk about it like walking away with tons of video footage from his childhood. So the movie really made itself in a way. Maybe I lit a match and was kind of a catalyst at the beginning. But I've always thought this thing has like a life of its own. Because there were a majority of stages I wasn't that present for. I just came back in for like editing and some of the other stuff towards the end. The Father Ryan's story, I almost want to say it tells itself. Somebody is telling it, and it's not me, because everybody who gets involved in it really becomes invested, and they fall in love with him, and what God has done in his life. And we always thought, like, this man, he's the best of us. Like, he really was a great priest. Just a great man. And a good friend to, I think, a lot of people. And so it's, I'm glad that this is happening. I know it's true. I say it towards the end of the film. I don't think he would have liked this. He didn't look for the limelight. He didn't try to put himself out there in any way. But now that he can't tell me no, we made this film. And then it's like, it feels a little bit like hitting a home run, and this thing is still sailing out of the park. Like, I don't know where it's going to land, but it really has gone way beyond anybody's expectation.
I mean, it's a fabulous film.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I, when we saw it, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I can't wait to, hear more about it reaching other countries and, all over the world.
That's literally on somebody's list. Like, could they bring it to Poland? Could they bring it to Brazil? And Croatia or Bosnia Herzegovina, where they've done a lot of work, the filmmakers, because of the Medjugorje film.
Wow.
So it's just, I don't know where this is going, but I'm in no mood to stop it. That would be crazy, and just let it sail. Let it sail.
So how do the if you don't mind talking about it, how do the economics of this go? How does it reach other countries? Who pays for all of that stuff?
I don't know. We invested maybe like 12 or 14,000. I can't remember exactly how much it totaled to.
We meaning the vocations office.
Yeah, through thankfully the Scanlon grant over a period of time to come up with short clips and things like that. Well, now we have it's not even 57 minutes now. Now they're trying to make it like, 70 minutes.
I would definitely watch an extended version of it for sure.
No,
yes.
When we first started editing, I was telling Samela, and this is, I think, what makes this project different from a lot of other films, because I have a friend who works for Focus, and they were just debuting a film about, I think she's a servant of God, so they've opened her cause for canonization. I mean, it's a long process. I'm trying to remember Michelle Dupont, who maybe also died of cancer, but she died young as a Focus missionary. And the challenge, for any of these films, which are about great people, is that most of the film is about people talking about the person because that's all the footage you can get.
Yeah.
Somehow we have a lot of footage of him talking to us. And I was watching him do the Mass, and I just thought, like, Samela, we just need more of this. Like, even I'm fascinated. I want to go to his Mass. Like, watching him pray the Mass. At some point, I think Father Christopher Meyer put it well. Like, he became more holy as he suffered. And you can see, like, as he really grew in his priesthood and in his suffering, he really begins to value little moments that all of us who are in something of the rat race still, we just pass over. Like, he really appreciated these days because they might have been, and they were, his last days. We say that sometimes before we pray Mass. We say, like, Lord, help me to treat this as like my first Mass, my last Mass, my only Mass. But it's hard to actually do that when like, I've got the 11, I've got the 2, I'm going to have some more Masses and it's going to be a long day. But I think you can see in him somebody who really is appreciating like what he's doing as a priest moment by moment, because he's not taking it for granted, because he knew that the next day he could just be in the hospital and he could die. And so that's what makes some of this special. Not many people know this, but the opening line, the kind of overture, it's his voiceover. And we love that like at the end of the day, we kind of chose him to narrate his own story.
That's cool.
But it's his Good Friday homily. And I was telling Samela, like priests put a lot of work into the Triduum. It's like the Super Bowl. We want this to be great.
Oh, yeah.
And this is his Good Friday homily, like before he dies. Like, like this thing has some merit. You should really, like, we should just like, I wanted her to just like put the entire homily out there. It didn't feel right. It was too long of, you can't open a film with that.
I think a lot of people have watched that one several times.
Yeah.
Because it was so, at the time it happened too. The whole timing with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And, everyone was on lockdown at some point too. And, it was crazy. Yeah.
That's right. You can find a lot of his material still out there because it was all recorded because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So Prince of Peace had all their Masses live streaming. And then thanks, to people like, or parishes like Prince of Peace that never like delete their footage and just, that's the beauty is that you just have all this treasure trove of footage.
Yeah, it's that blessing in disguise from the pandemic.
Amen. Yeah, this is one good thing that came out.
Right. Yeah. So I asked this to Father Ryan's parents. Is there, a possibility of a saint, Father Ryan Stawaisz? Is there anything moving? Is there anything going on?
I'm not opposed to that. I don't think anybody's promoting that cause. It really is, I think from a logistical point of view, it's pretty complicated. It involves a lot of money to begin postulating a cause.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You would have to ask somebody. You should have like Father Luke Millette, the canon lawyer of the Archdiocese, come and tell you about any canon lawyer thing you'd want to know. But my guess is that, a lot of, basically it requires a lot of man hours to kind of review a lot of things and come up with a documentation and stuff like that. And who puts in those man hours is a good question. And so if it's done by somebody, usually you have to pay some people to begin collecting data, reviewing data. And my guess is that's probably where the cost comes from, because you basically have to employ people, like several people for years. Working
full time pretty much, digging, doing, like it's an extensive background check. That's
exactly
what it is,
yeah. So, I don't think anybody's talked about doing that, but no one's going to stand in the way. If there are really miracles coming from Father Ryan Stawaisz and his intercession, we'll know, and it'll move things along. So, yeah.
We have some friends at St. Faustina that are going through some tough times, and we're, praying for Father Ryan's intercession. Like, hopefully this is the miracle, one of the miracles. It's 2 miracles, right? That's needed. So hopefully this will be one of those miracles.
Yeah. But there's somewhere in the film where somebody acknowledges that, like, there wasn't any miracle, at least in his life, that they were, referring to. But he was the miracle. Like, there's something about the way the man suffered well, that his virtue that God gave him, like, that was divine. So even if we never get, people healing, people being healed or stuff like that, I'm grateful for his witness.
Yes.
As a man of God. I think that spoke volumes and is enough.
I mean, Herm and I, we've, during some of those days in the pandemic, we'd talk with Father David Michael. We did some Zoom calls, and he's, he was very close with Father Ryan, and he would tell us, he would admire how much Father Ryan was, taking his sickness with so much grace. I mean, wow, we could every time I think of complaining about something, or I think about, what my last days, like hopefully I'll be able to face them with, that much grace with his Father Ryan.
Yeah, no, he definitely suffered well. And I think I also have the same effect when I see this film, that I think, yeah, maybe I shouldn't complain as much as I did. It's not that bad.
Now, we're gonna have the filmmakers on in, hopefully we can get them on soon, and we'll ask them a few more of those behind the scenes things. Is there anything that you'd like people to know before, they go into the theater if they haven't seen it yet?
No, I think those are my main thoughts. Just appreciating Father Ryan being this great priest, and you can see it in the film, and just appreciating those little moments, like when he does mass or some of his homilies. You get pretty good clips of them there, and maybe just to say, like, hey, if you like this, there's more. You can deep dive on YouTube and find a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. You just type in Father Ryan Stawaisz, and then a bunch of stuff pops up from the Vocations YouTube account, and all of that stuff. Prince of Peace, it's fantastic. We've got another round of ordinations coming up. Who are those guys?
Yeah, so John Clark Hydau and Carlos Valero will be ordained to the transitional diaconate this May.
Did you see them into the seminary, or?
That's the funny thing about being a vocation director. It's so long term. This is still not quite the class that I saw into the seminary.
Really?
I want to, we could, that's nuance. Let me take this back. So John Clark and Hydau, and there were a couple other people who are not, at least currently, seminarians. They were accepted, and when they entered seminary, I was there.
Okay.
So, but I wasn't there for any of the entering process.
Okay.
Just the kind of last orientation and onboarding, which was 2 days or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Carlos predates me, so that's a Father TJ.
Uh-huh.
And so I forget how long he had been in the seminary prior to me coming on, probably a year or two. But that's just how long. So I really, if you want to talk about people I've seen into the seminary, that's one more year out. So
really,
okay. It's just that long. It takes 7 years for somebody to go from start to finish, and I've only been here for 6.
Wow. So do you and some of the other former vocation directors, do you brag about numbers and all that?
No, we really don't. I guess vocation directors are a little sensitive when it comes to. There's a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
But I will say this, Father Dat, you hold the record to men entering seminary that we know from when we started taking records.
What number is that?
16.
16 guys in 1 year.
Yeah.
Wow.
But this is going to be a good year. So hopefully we'll be close to that, or maybe even more. You never know. So
does he hold the record for the most ordained as well?
I think so. So I don't know what class sizes were like in the 60s or 50s or Galveston-Houston has a long history, but of recent recording and memory, he probably that 7 is
that magnificent 7, Father Ryan's class, right?
And there was under Father Dat, there was another year. I don't know. I guess it would have been his work too, where they were 5 and 2. So there were 2 ordinations, but it really would have been 7 if you had stacked it all up in one ordination. So he's done 7 twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Father Dad is the goat of vocation directing. So.
Now let's look at it from the other side, from the side of, a guy who's entering seminary. What would they expect before they call you the very first time and say, hey, I'm thinking about, I think I'm being called. What would they expect, from you? What would the first steps be?
Well, what they might think, it may not be actually the way it goes. I mean, they're probably afraid of I don't know. I think sometimes guys think once I express a desire, that's it.
Come on in, right?
Yeah, never going back. That's why they don't express it. They're like, it's either all or nothing. Where the reality is much more nuanced. I tell people, look, even when you go to seminary, you're going to have to rethink your decision every year. It's called a evaluation. There's an evaluation that's done by your formators, people in charge. And there's even a self-evaluation. Is this really what I wanted? Do I belong here? So there's a lot of reconsideration. And, you don't really make kind of promises for at least 2 to 4 years in, maybe sometimes even 5 years later, So there's a long process of discernment. And I think that's sometimes what they should expect, but they don't, because they're really a lot of people show up because they've already decided, I'm going to be a priest. And it's whoa, we got this, what are you going to do for the next 10 years in seminary, So just hold on and keep reconsidering and deepening that discernment. But you can decide to go to seminary. You can decide to follow God's will. But I think it's kind of hard to decide to be a priest when you just started. You got to decide that over and over again if you want to decide at the beginning.
So in other words, don't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of decision comes after the process of years of discerning. It's made up of many decisions, but you can't just start with it.
So what you're saying is, even if they just have an inkling, talk to you, call you up. Don't wait until they're 100% want to go into seminary.
That's right. We hope men, when they first have a sense of oh, maybe I could be a priest, actually go to our website or reach out, because we have resources for those guys to figure it out, not on their own. Just do it in community, do it with some guidance. We don't think everybody who approaches us has a call, but we want to take seriously that process of discernment that's going on so that you can figure it out. And, a lot of people, when they try to do things on their own, they make mistakes. And we have an enemy, a spiritual enemy, who's very happy to influence those mistakes. And so, I don't know, do it yourself. We all know it's not as good as having it done by professionals or in a group or with coaching. So why take discernment, which is one of life's biggest decisions? Why not take it more seriously? Why do it yourself?
Yeah. So they call you up, and then what happens? You meet with them? Do you talk on the phone for an hour or two with them? Or?
It could be any of those. It could just be hey, come to this event, or an email exchange. A lot of times I have managed to do a lot of work in one conversation, where a lot of people have received a lot of help by just going to one retreat. That's it. It doesn't have to be a long process. For some it is. For some, because there might really be a call there, it takes a little longer. But sometimes, it could just be as simple as you came, we talked, you realize I need to pray more. And then you go work on your prayer life. And if your desire is still kind of coming up again in the prayer life, meaning if the desire for priesthood or religious life comes up again when you're praying, then you should come back and we'll talk a little bit more and we'll get you in another process. But it's just a step-by-step process. And I really wish people saw that, as opposed to just thinking that the next step is ordination.
Yeah, it's all right, let's get them ordained right away. No, not at all. Yeah, it's years.
That's right.
Okay, so they go in, they talk to you. Let's say that does happen. It comes again. They call you again. What's the next step? They go through the whole evaluation process? Is that what it is?
Yeah, at some point, the only place to discern priesthood left for a guy is the seminary. So the seminary is the best place to discern priesthood. It just turns out that one, not everybody can fit. We don't have that much room. And two, there's a lot of other discernment that you could do prior to seminary where you didn't have to, enter and give up a lot of stuff and things like that. We want to take it step by step. So we start small and then we get big later. And the application, it's a real process to get into seminary. So once we figure like, hey, the best place for you to discern is seminary, then you apply. And it takes ideally maybe like 4 months. It involves a lot of self-reflection there too. They write an autobiography. It's not a huge one, just like 7 pages. And they get, like a lot of resources, like recommendation letters together and things like that, like entering college, kind of like writing a college essay and getting letters of rec. They even have to give us their transcripts. We care about those too.
Okay.
And then we have a series of interviews, unlike college. So we're actually able to interview everybody who wants to come to seminary. And they even get this psychological interview that's lengthy, serious. I tell everybody, you're going to feel crazy. It's just part of the process. You're going to feel crazy when you go through this interview. You're probably not crazy. I'm really pretty sure you're not crazy, but you're just going to feel like that. And so they do that. That's like a 6-hour ordeal.
Wow.
Part of that is the testing.
Wow.
And then like maybe a 2 or 3 hour interview legitimately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think Father Joseph White, when he was a deacon, he kind of laid out like the whole process. I think he went into detail in one of our first interviews. Wow, that's crazy. So for women, how is it? Like, so let's say a young woman comes up to you, says that she might want to become a religious sister. How does that differ?
Yeah, well, we really don't have our own system that we can put them into. So I think that's a little bit of the challenge, is that at some point we have to hand her off to the community that she'll continue discerning with. Just like I was saying, for a man discerning priesthood, at some point he's going to reach a wall where he can only discern this in seminary.
Okay.
At some point, a woman discerning the convent is going to hit a kind of wall, like you can't discern anymore until you enter the convent and just live it, try it, see it, pray in it, and then you'll know. So, we have a seminary, we don't have convents attached to the Archdiocese. And usually what we try to do with women is either get them in a conversation with Joel Regis, who's in the office, or another sister or a consecrated woman, just so that they can begin being mentored or guided. Sometimes we just try to help them find a spiritual director, although those are hard to find, and we know that. And it really, we'd like to get them to go on some events. We have some great programs out there, retreats and discernment groups for women. Verbum Tuum will be coming up in the fall. We have this one in about 3 weeks. It's called The Glimpse of Community Life. And I mean, I think it's a great idea if you were leaning towards that. So what we're trying to do is kind of like replicate what it's like to live in community. We have this rectory in Galveston that Father Jude lets us use.
Okay.
And so like Joma and maybe another consecrated woman will live in community with these women who have signed up for about a week. And
so it's like a simulation
of what it's like to be in a convent.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I think what we're trying to do there, I mean, it's not me, I'm not really involved, but what they're trying to do there is show them what it means to be in community. Because I think a lot of women these days, they think like, oh, it's like having roommates or it's like having friends. But community is deeper than roommates and friends. It really is that love that Jesus gives us. It's like, I am going to love my neighbors at the expense and sacrifice of myself. And so I'm going to wash their dishes. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to talk about them. Learning those little nuances of charity when you live with other people is, usually we're just not very intentional about that, but it's actually good to form those habits, especially if you want it to be a sister. And that's kind of a first test for a lot of people. Like, look, if you think you want to be a nun, or I should say a sister, then you need to experience living in community, because it's not a walk in the park. It's not friends, and it's not roommates. it's another thing.
Thank you so much for, I know you're in a rush. You've got lots of places to go and things to do and people to talk to. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
Well, thank you, Ray.
And, we wish you the best with, whatever happens. Who knows if you get that call to, to go to a parish, who knows?
Yeah, maybe so. We'll see. We'll see what God has planned for me, what the Cardinal has planned. And I'm just grateful. I'm trying to live in the present moment. And thanks for what you do on this ministry. I think it's great.
Thank you.